I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Hello, Davy Jones here. I'm back to make another video, and this time it's an idea I had to drive the Thrustmaster TSPC Racer and then switch directly to the Simagic Alpha Evo and share my thoughts and experiences on that. I had tried already to create this video. I drove the TSPC Racer and then switched directly to the Alpha Evo, not taking into account the fact that the TSPC Racer is set at an angle because it's meant to be placed on a desk or table, and the Simagic Alpha Evo is different, and I needed to change the angle of the wheel deck and increase the height of the wheel deck, and long story short, I had to scrap all that and start again. So it took me a bit longer to create the video, but it was kind of a good thing in the end because the rev lights were not working on the GT Neo rim for the Simagic, so I had to get those working. And then I had some noises coming from the Simagic Alpha Evo wheelbase, so I had to figure out what those were and get some knowledge on that. So I'm going to share that information in this video, so hopefully then that will be useful for people. So let's start with the TSPC Racer. I'm using a camera here. I'm using my phone actually, and an application called Screen Copy, so hopefully this camera is okay. I'm recording this in widescreen. There will be some gameplay in the background with Le Mans Ultimate, and I make the camera nice and big because it's about the hardware here, not so much the gameplay. So we'll start by opening up the Thrustmaster drivers. Now I don't know if Thrustmaster have any better software. I've been using the Thrustmaster drivers that integrates with the Windows game control panel. Now this will be quite small here, so bear with me. So if I go to the properties here, I have the wheel and the base, and if I go to the settings, I have been running pretty much the default. Now if I remember correctly, the default strength used to be 75%, or maybe I'm recalling that wrong. At least it's now 60, maybe it was always 60. I don't know exactly. But anyway, I've been running it on the defaults, and the wheel is set to a max rotation of 540 degrees. So it's on defaults, and it says here to always close the control panel before you start a game, which is different for the Simagic, so that's nice. So you can actively tweak the settings while the game is still running. So that is definitely an upgrade. So I'll click OK and close everything. And now I'm going to run Le Mans Ultimate. Now I'm in the Porsche LM GT3 at Le Mans, and I'll click on Start Driving, and I'll quickly check my settings. Now I want to check the force feedback smoothing because that's going to become relevant later on. Now I don't recall what I usually have this set at, but let's put it to 0 for now, and click resume. Okay, and let's now go out on track. I have the starter and ignition mapped to buttons. This can be automatic in Le Mans Ultimate, but I use it anyway. And I will then disengage the pit limiter. Now the one thing with the TSPC Racer, and I guess it's the same for all belt and gear driven wheels, is that you get resistance in the wheel, but you don't get as much feeling as you would with direct drive. And I was watching a video by Cryptic TMG, I'll put a link in the description, and he noted the same. He had switched from a Thrustmaster T300 RS to a direct drive. I think it was 13 Newton meters. And he said the same, that you get resistance, but you don't really get sort of the feeling. So if I drive over the rumble strips here, I can hear them and I can feel them, but it's not so detailed. So that's sort of the main thing. Not that it's a bad system, and I could perhaps also turn up the strength of the setting in the driver there. So overall, it's more of a feeling of resistance rather than the sort of detailed feedback. Although I have to say I'm still getting used to the direct drive, and I have lots of things to dial in. So you have to be, I will say, you have to be you have to be prepared to tinker around. This is what many people have said. It's not just like plug and play. You have to be prepared to dive into the settings in the wheelbase driver. In game, you have to be prepared to sort of poke around and figure out what's best for you. And that's definitely true with the Simagic Alpha Evo. And I will show this then when I switch. So that's the TSPC Racer. And now I'm going to switch to the Simagic Alpha Evo. And I'll talk about the software and drive the same car and track combination. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so I've mounted the Simagic Alpha Evo on the wheel deck, and the first thing I want to discuss is the quick release, the NRG style quick release. So when I'm not playing, I keep the wheel off the base and I store it here, and I keep this cover on the quick release to protect it. So this little cover here that was provided. And one thing I didn't know was that when you place an NRG style wheel onto the base, I thought it didn't really matter how this connection here is orientated, but that's not so. Now, I've watched many reviews and I don't recall anybody mentioning this, but the NRG style quick release, and this is the guide for the GT Neo, the NRG style quick release includes ball bearings, and there are 6 ball bearings above and 4 ball bearings below. So obviously you present the wheel right side up, and then you have to make sure that the quick release on the base is orientated the correct way. In this case here, there's the Simagic logo, which is horizontal, and then you place it. And another minor element is that the Neo rims, if you are connecting them to an older Alpha base, you need to pair the wheel to the wheelbase. So there are instructions here. Now, the funny thing is on the Neo X330T user guide, it states a reminder when using the wheel with M10 Alpha or Alpha U, you must sync the frequency. Now, it's clearly stated on the user guide, on the quick guide for the Neo X330T, but that note is not included on the guide for the GT Neo. A minor error, but I guess it was just an oversight on the documentation on the Simagic side. And another note on the wheel rims is the stickers that come with the GT Neo. Now, there are discussions about this online, about the fact that there's no sticker for brake bias. Now, there's a sticker for EB, whatever that's supposed to mean, but there's no BB sticker for brake bias. So people have been sort of creating their own stickers or modifying the stickers or buying third-party sets. And I think I read on Reddit that perhaps Moza has the same issue. So anyway, just to note that. And these are my sticker placements right now. I actually made a brake bias label for this rotary encoder here by cutting 2 EB labels into BB. I know it sounds silly, but there you go. So I have, let's see, I have flashlights. This is now for Le Mans Ultimate right now, but flash and then change camera and then switch between the page between the multifunction display and then pit and pit limiter and then HUD controls and then mirrors and then power on and ignition. Power on and ignition in Le Mans Ultimate can be automatic, so I may not keep these. Let's see. And then I've got traction control and traction control cut, and then ABS and brake bias. Like I said, the traction control and cut and ABS, all these things I have to learn. I'm not an advanced user by any means, so I've been following lots of tutorials and trying to learn the concepts. And then now that I have these additional controls, get to use them. And then a quick comparison on camera here between the Thrustmaster open wheel add-on and the Simagic GT Neo. As you can see, they are similar style wheels, but they are, of course, quite different. And now I have more buttons to use, which is nice. So as I said, I've been keeping the wheel off the base when not in use. And this wheel and my other wheel came with these optional wall mounts. Now I haven't mounted them on the wall, but what I've been doing actually is keeping the mount inside the quick release to protect it when not in use. So you can just pop it in and pop it out. So if I pull on here, I'll just pop it out there now. That pops out. And then you have the little mount piece that's meant to go on a wall, like I said, but you can just pop that in there and you have to line it up in the same way. So there are the little 4 spaces below and 6 spaces above. And as I said in the NRG style quick release, which I said I didn't know, there are the six ball bearings above and the 4 below. And to line it up, the quick release on the base has to be orientated the correct way. So in this case, the Simagic logo facing up and horizontal. Now I'm going to mount the wheel just like that. Now I'm going to turn on the Simagic software. Now the Simagic software window is quite small and you cannot expand it. This is something that Mike from SimRacing 604 pointed out in one of his videos. So I'm going to make it larger to make it easier to see, like that. So as I move around, you guys can see better what's happening. And I'm going to press the button at the back and power on the base and the wheel. And hopefully everything lights up. So if I go to devices here, we have the Simagic Alpha Evo at 12 Newton meters and the GT Neo. Where I spent most of my time in this software is in games. And here, initially I found this little scroll bar here difficult to find, so watch out for that. It might be an idea to change the theme to make it easier to see. So I'll scroll down here and I'll select Le Mans Ultimate. I'll here click on Edit. You have available a series of presets created by Simagic. So if I click on Expand Preset here, I have the Simagic presets and then the personal presets. So these are the Simagic's own and then those I've created myself. So what I can do, for example, is go down and select the Le Mans Ultimate preset, and then I could make some changes and save it. And when I save it, it goes here to my personal list. So that's useful actually. And I have a couple of presets here. So I was watching a video by Just Dave on YouTube. I'll link to it in the video description. So I have a couple of examples here and 1 and 2 that I've been sort of playing with. And then the third one is a copy of the Simagic default preset, where the FFB details are at 20%. The force feedback is at 80%, so 9.6 Newton meters. I just actually check, is the default? Yes, indeed it is. So anyway, I go back to my preset, which is a copy of this. So FFB details at 20. Now the FFB details is an important setting as it relates to vibrations I've been experiencing when using this base. So this is something I'm going to show. So I'm going to run Le Mans Ultimate. And what's nice is you can keep the Simagic software open while the game is running. And in Le Mans Ultimate, you can actively change settings and actively change settings in the Simagic software, which is nice. So I'm going to minimize this window here. Goes away. Okay, so I'm in the same scenario I was in Le Mans Ultimate. The 911 LMGT3 at Le Mans. And I'm going to go to the Simagic software. So Alt tab here. Now, as you can see in the Simagic software, it has switched the profiles away from what I had selected. Why it does this, I don't exactly know. Anyway, I'm going to switch to the default. So maybe I can change the order here. Maybe the change is based on the order. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to switch to the preset, which is a copy of the default. And you notice here that the FFB details are up to 20, okay? And in the game, forgive me, I'm going to move this window out of the way and I'll hide the camera too. I have force feedback on. Now the force feedback strength is at 50%. So that's 50% where it's 80% in the wheel, I think it was. Force feedback smoothing is off. So with a combination of the FFB details at 20 in the Simagic software and the force feedback smoothing to 0 in Le Mans Ultimate, the wheelbase is going to vibrate. And when this first happened, I thought the wheelbase was broken, but it's not the case. Now, according to a video I watched by Danny Lee was reviewing a VRS base and wheel. Danny reckons it's an inherent characteristic of the NRG style quick release, that perhaps the ball bearings or something are vibrating, I don't know, but there is a noise and I'm going to show you. So I'll set the force feedback smoothing to 0, and in the Simagic software, the FFB details are 20, and the force feedback is 80%, like I said. Now I'm going to move the microphone close to the base, and you can hear the vibrations, okay? So when I'm going over the rumble strips and I'm braking heavy, you'll hear the noise, okay? So as you can see, when I'm going over the rumble strips and braking heavily, the base vibrates. This is something I'm learning to deal with. And in Assetto Corsa as well, there's a road detail setting that I had to dial down. Otherwise the base will vibrate. I don't think it's doing any harm to the mechanism. It's just noise. And with noise cancelling headphones, you may not hear it. But I heard it at least. And of course, depending on your living scenario, it may annoy those around you. So that's something to note. Now, so I'm going to reset the session. Okay. Return to garage. And I'll go into the settings and I'll turn up the smoothing. Okay. Force feedback smoothing. I'll put it up to, let's say, put it up to 7. The maximum, it goes from 1 to 9. Let's put it at 7, okay? And then I go back into the Simagic software and I'll turn off the FFB details. I'll just put it to 0, okay? Just for now. So that's smoothing at 7 and the FFB details at 0. I close this window and I'll place the microphone close to the base again so you'll hear the difference. So there you go. You can clearly hear, or not hear, the difference rather in the feedback. So this seems to be a function of the NRG style quick release. And I noted that Will from Boosted Media was doing a video about, I think it was Fanatec or Simacube, and he talked about a Krontec, I think it was Krontec style quick release, which I think is a German manufacturer, and Fanatec's QR2 and Simacube's latest quick release is based on this Krontec. I'll put some B-roll on screen. For Simagic and Moza and VRS, for example, you have this energy style quick release. So I'm going to go back to base again. Okay. And perhaps there's a sort of a happy medium. So I'm going to go back to the SimPro Manager, and I'm going to put the FFB details, so let's say to 10. So let's split the difference. Okay. Something like that. Now I'm still learning this, and there are great videos. For example, Race Beyond Matter did a great video explaining what the settings do. So I'll put that in the video description. So I need to study that and try and figure out what's the best. And you could, of course, make presets for individual cars. In a game, you could make presets for individual games. So I could have a preset for LMU and AC Evo and AC Rally and so on. And Assetto Corsa has this road texture setting, which also causes this same vibration effect. So you may need to dial that down as well. So, and I go with settings in game, force feedback smoothing to, let's say let's put it to 4. Okay. Split the difference now. Okay. And then resume, and I'll turn my camera back on again. Okay. And now we can just drive. So there is a sort of a happy medium, and of course it will depend on the strength of your overall wheelbase. In this case with Simagic, it's 9 or 12 or 18 or even 28 Newton meters, like the Ultra. Now here we go out. I seem to have a penalty to pay. So with the direct drive, there's resistance in the wheel, but it's not the same as with the belt and gear. It's a different sort of resistance. The wheel feels lighter on the edges, but more resistance in the center, if that makes any sense. And people talk about how you can feel the front tires losing grip. This is what I remember people saying, but I haven't defined that yet, so I'm still getting there. So I can feel the rumble of when I go over the rumble strips, the curbs, I can feel them. Now it may have been the settings of the Thrustmaster TSPC Racer, but I heard the rumble strips. I didn't really feel them in the wheel, but I feel them now. So it's definitely an upgrade. But if I was on a belt and gear driven system, do I definitely need to upgrade? I would say no. If you're happy enough with what you have, continue with what you have. So as I sway now, as I kind of wobble around like I'm warming up tires, I can feel this. I can feel it, the direction change in the wheel. So that's one thing. And the rev lights are working. There's a JSON file. There's a config file in in Le Mans Ultimate, similar to R Factor 2. You have to enable the shared library plugin, the shared plugin thingy, whatever it's called, and then the rev lights were working. And with Le Mans Ultimate, like I said, and SimPro Manager, you can change settings on the fly. And that's the same for every direct drive system. So that's kind of nice. So that's a good way of working out, well, what settings are best. It's probably simpler though, I guess, to have like one personal preset and just work on that. Otherwise you end up getting confused because there are so many parameters. So that's kind of it. That's my experience so far. And like I said, I'm still learning and I haven't spent an enormous amount of time with this system yet. I've been busy with life in general. So I'm still getting used to things, and whatever I discover, I will try and share here on the channel. So I hope this video has been informative. Like I said, I wanted to, I took some time to figure out how to use the system, and then anything I didn't already know, because I'd watched so many reviews, anything I didn't know, I thought I would share, so you guys don't have to go searching on Reddit when something seems to go wrong, which is what happened to me. That's a lap of Le Mans. Okay, until next time, see ya.